For many years, Christmas had been my favorite holiday. Everything about it made me happy, from the quality time spent with family and friends, the decorations, and most of all, the presents. I'm just kidding, but I do love to shop for my loved ones, taking this season to show a little extra appreciation for them. It was 2022, and I had a bit of last-minute shopping to do. By last minute, I mean Christmas Eve. I am typically better about these kinds of things, but I was in a new role at work and time had gotten away from me. I wasn't too worried though, because the bulk of my shopping had been done. I just needed to pick up a couple more items. I spent the day going here and there, with traffic and lines at the stores being horrible as expected. Finally, I made it to my local mall, which was the last stop on my semi-hectic journey. I just needed to stop in Macy's and pick up the perfume my mom likes, and then I was going to head home. The mall was huge, and I had to park at the top floor of a 7-level parking garage. The mall was closing early, and it was getting late, so I rushed down after parking, spent about 20 minutes in line, got what I needed, and then made my way back to the car. I was feeling a great sense of completion, and already mapping out what wrapping paper I was going to use for each gift. After a brisk walk up a few flights of stairs, I was back on level 7. I can see my car parked in the distance, and I popped the trunk preemptively, so when I got to the car, I could toss the stuff in and just head home. I got to my car, threw the stuff in, and went to open my door. I grabbed the handle and realized I had forgotten to lock the door because I definitely didn't hit the unlock button or the key fob yet. In a rush to get into the store, it just slipped my mind, later turning out to be a huge mistake. I sat in the car just happy to be out of the December wind. I blew into my hands to warm them before going for my keys to start the car. It's a slightly older vehicle to all who are wondering, so I actually still had to put the key into the ignition. Right as I was going to start the car, I felt a presence. The hair on my arm stood up and my heart rate elevated all in a split second. It's very hard to explain. Next thing you know, I felt something cold and sharp against my neck. At the same time, I heard a voice cold and void of emotion say, "If you do anything other than what I tell you, I'm going to slit your throat." I glanced over to the rearview mirror to see who was in my back seat, but it had been angled up towards the roof of the car, and my side view mirrors were also retracted in. The first thing I thought was, how did I not notice this? 15 years in the military and 2 tours in the Middle East, and here I was getting sneak attacked in a parking garage in my own hometown. I tried my best to remain calm. The man demanded that I toss my purse back to him and any valuables I had on me. I did what he said. Next, he told me to hand over my phone. That was one thing I was hoping he didn't ask for. All my private information and family photos were there, and I didn't want to give that up. Once he realized that I was not quick to hand it over, he pressed the knife harder into my neck. Another drop of pressure, and it was slicing into my neck for sure. He screamed, "Give it up now." I could tell he was losing his cool. Just as I was about to hand back my phone, the vehicle parked next to me unlocked as the lights blinked twice. The knife was pressed so hard into my neck, I dared not to look over, but I sharply cut my eyes to see 2 guys just a few feet away, about to be at their car. My heart began to race even faster. The man told me to start the car with a vicious tone. I felt a warm liquid run down my neck. The knife was beginning to cut into my skin. Next thing you know, I heard a booming voice yell, "Hey!" The man behind me jumped. They had startled him, and in a flash my back car door was ripped open and the man was grabbed out of the car. I heard the knife fall and hit the ground with a metallic thud and all of the commotion. Tears began to stream down my face as I turned to look back at what was going on. The 2 men that had been walking to their car had the man who attacked me on the ground, beating the crap out of him. They were 2 pretty big guys and did a real number on him. The elevator door opened and 5 mall security were sprinting over. I pulled myself together and got out of the car. I didn't want the security getting the wrong idea. One of the 2 guys that came to my rescue had the criminal pinned on the ground still. I explained everything. The mall security cuffed the guy on the ground where he lay, all beat up. I thanked the men profusely, hugging them, not being able to hold back my tears. They humbly accepted my gratitude. The police arrived soon after, got our statements, and took the man to jail. When I got home, I had a really hard time sleeping that night. Christmas came, and even though my friends and family were super upset about the situation, we tried to make the best of everything. It's been 3 years, and that guy is still locked up for what he did that Christmas Eve night. I haven't felt the same about Christmas since. My name is Julia, and I was born and raised in upstate New York, Syracuse to be exact. But when my grandfather died about 5 years ago, I uprooted my life and moved into his home in Bar Harbor, Maine. We have a very small family, and with me being the only one who really visited or called and checked on my granddad, when he passed away, he left everything to me. I was very shocked when this happened because he skipped my parents and my older sibling altogether, which pissed them off, but it was nothing they could do. To be honest, I didn't really want to move to Maine. I had a life that was completely established in Syracuse and a career that I really loved. Yet, on the other hand, my grandfather's house was a beautiful colonial home that had been in the family for over 150 years, and it had been maintained with love and care. So I couldn't just let it sit there to rot, or even worse, sell it. When I bid my farewells to my hometown, it was late November, a horrible time to move in this part of the country due to the freezing cold and snow, but it had to be done. When I arrived, I began to get everything cleaned up because I wanted to host Christmas for my family here at Granddad's house like we used to do when I was a kid. They agreed to come up, so it was all settled. After I was all unpacked, I thought it would be nice to go out and get a real tree to help provide the authentic Christmas feeling. I stopped at the store to get a few strings of light and a Christmas tree stand, then I went home to decorate. After getting the tree set up and the lights plugged in, I realized that I didn't have any ornaments to put on the tree. Then it hit me. We decorated the tree here when I was young, and I knew my granddad put a tree up every year, even after Grandma had passed, so it had to be ornaments up in the attic. I sprang up from the couch and jogged up the staircase. This house has one of those old pull-down ladders to get into the attic. I remember walking down the dimly lit hall with the old wooden floor cracking beneath me, remembering the fear I used to feel when my grandparents used to send me to get something out of the attic when I was a kid. I laughed to myself, thinking how irrational that fear was when I was a child. I reached the attic door, then grabbed the rope to pull down the ladder. It squeaked super loud as dust showered my face. I guess Grandpa hadn't been up here in a while, I said out loud. I cut on the flashlight on my phone as I made my ascent into the cold, dark attic. Once I was up there, it was plenty of space for me to stand up, so looking for ornaments wouldn't be too difficult. All the old tattered boxes and totes up there were labeled, and before you knew it, my light landed on a big tote that said Christmas decorations and ornaments. This made me feel as if I had struck gold as I walked closer to pick the tote up to cart it back down to the living room. Suddenly, one of the floorboards in the corner of the attic echoed loudly through the room like an immense weight had just been put on it. I whipped around, pointing my light into the direction, but the darkness just seemed to absorb it. I slowly moved closer to the source of the sound while my light slowly illuminated more and more of the area. Slowly, a figure came into view, and when they realized I was onto them, they stood up. He revealed himself, a tall, bony man with a huge, grizzled beard staring directly at me. I screamed at the top of my lungs and fell back onto the floor. I hurried to my feet and lunged towards the ladder. I made it to the ladder and began to climb down. Just when I thought I was going to get away, I felt the sensation of my hair being pulled hard and up towards the attic. The man was trying to pull me back up by my hair. I dug my nails into his wrist, causing him to yell out in pain, and loosened his grip just enough for me to pull my head back. The quick motion caused me to lose my balance and then fall back off the ladder. I fell onto my back and the wind was knocked out of me. I forced myself up, picked up my phone, and ran down the hall to my granddad's room, slamming the door shut behind me. It was a giant wooden door with a deadbolt lock, so I felt secure. I called the police in a panic and explained to them what was happening. They told me to stay where I was and that help was on the way. The dispatch stayed on the line while I had my other ear pressed to the door, trying to make out what was going on in the hall. Everything was silent. Within minutes, the sound of sirens came wailing in the distance. That's when I heard running down the hall and down the steps. He was trying to escape. The sound of the sirens was now in my street, so I cracked the door open to check my surroundings. Looking around, the coast seemed clear, so I crept out from the room and walked towards the staircase. A cold draft was coming up the steps, and after taking a few steps down towards the main level, I realized that the front door was wide open. I stood in the doorway as the cops rushed over to me. I told them that the door was wide open and that the man had most likely ran out. More cop cars were pulling up, and the ones that were already there split into teams. 3 of them rushed off in the surrounding area on foot to search, and 2 rushed in to clear my home. I stood out on the front lawn with an officer as I waited anxiously. All of a sudden, there was yelling coming from the basement. The 2 officers emerged from the basement with the crazed man apprehended. He yelled incoherently as they drug him off and threw him in the back of a cop car. They stayed a while and talked with me and told me what the process would look like going forward. I repeatedly thanked them for saving my life. I called my parents and told them what happened. They were horrified and insisted I come back at once. I told them that I would be okay, but I was a bit shaken up. They flew up the next day and stayed with me over the next month. I still live in that house to this day. Though Christmas is still my favorite holiday, I always remember how my first Christmas here was almost my last. The story that I am writing today happened back when I was a kid. I grew up in the 90s and Christmas back then seemed unmatched. The malls were a thing of beauty with their elaborate decorations, and it seemed to snow a little more on the regular. A lot of Christmas traditions still stood strong, for example, like regularly receiving Christmas cards during the holiday season. My father was a criminal lawyer who had been practicing for a very long time. He helped many people over the years not go to jail, or at least not serve a ton of time, so every year around Christmas, it was not unusual for him to receive gifts and loads of Christmas cards. My dad is a pretty decent guy. He would neatly display each card on the mantle in his den every holiday season. Then when Christmas was over, he would put them in a box and store them, never throwing them away. He said it was bad luck to throw away someone's well wishes to your family. It was getting closer and closer to Christmas Day, and the Christmas cards kept rolling in. Every evening, my father would come in with mail to open in his study. Me and my younger brother sat in the living room watching cartoons, waiting on my mom to be done with dinner so we could eat. My mom called us into the dining room to eat dinner, so we left our Scooby-Doo Christmas special to get some much-needed food. My father came walking into the dining room with an odd look on his face. It was a look of concern, and I was not used to seeing him wear that expression. He asked to speak to my mother in private, and they both disappeared into the kitchen. Me and my brother ran over to eavesdrop, and what we heard was very unsettling. My dad was telling my mom that he had received a strange Christmas card. It went silent, and then I heard my mom gasp loudly. "How could this happen?" she said. He told her to keep calm and call the police. When she said that, my brother and I looked at each other with bewildered expressions. We heard them walking back towards the dining room, so we rushed back over to our chairs like nothing ever happened. He smiled at us, then sat down. A few minutes later, my mom walked back into the room and sat down. They both were very quiet, way more quiet than they usually were around the dinner table. After finishing dinner, we watched some more TV, and before you knew it, it was time for bed. That night, I remember lying in bed, thinking about what my dad found in the mail that day. After about an hour of pondering and staring up at the ceiling, I slipped out of the bed, creeped out of my room, and started down the hallway toward my dad's study. The house was quiet and dark, but living there my whole life, I knew the layout like the back of my hand. When I reached the door of my dad's study, the door was cracked, and the glow of a dim lamp escaped the room. I peeked in to see if he was still up, so when I seen that he wasn't, I walked into the room and headed over to his desk. On the desk was an envelope addressed to my family. When I pulled it out the envelope at first, it seemed to be a plain old Christmas card, but when I opened it, a chill came over me and my mouth went dry. Inside was a picture of my brother and I sitting on the couch watching TV. Judging by the clothes we were wearing and the Christmas decorations being up in the picture, it seemed to be taken just last week. The photo was taped to the inside of the card with a message underneath written in red ink saying, "I'm watching you. Merry Christmas to you and yours." I put the card back into the envelope, scared as heck to even move from the spot I was standing. Out of my peripherals, I thought I seen something move past the window of my dad's office, which made my heart race even more, causing me to hurry back down the hall towards my room. There was about a week left until Christmas, and we had received more and more of those dark Christmas cards. I would know because my dad would come in from getting the mail with that same concerned look on his face, the same one from the first time. Every night I would sneak into his study to see what had been the latest photo used on the cards, and to my dismay, I found more candid pictures of my family doing random daily activities. Some from the summer, some from more recent times, like my mother walking to her car from the grocery store, my dad heading out in the morning for work, and my brother and I playing our Super Nintendo in the family room. All of the cards had cryptic and sometimes blatant messages written in them. Although I was young, I knew that it had something to do with my dad's work. Sometimes the people he helped and or couldn't help were actually just bad people, and I wondered if what we were experiencing stemmed from that. Over the next few days, I started to notice police parked on my street and more frequent patrolling of the neighborhood. I know that they were watching out for the stalker, but it didn't really make me feel any more safe. Christmas morning came, and I remember waking up with excitement, not thinking about all the weirdness that had surrounded my family the past few weeks. My brother and I flew into the family room to see tons of presents under the tree for us to tear into. My parents came walking in, still groggy, sipping their coffee, and for a moment, everything seemed back to normal. We opened many presents, and my brother and I got everything we could ask for. As the excitement was wearing down, my brother held up a box wrapped in a deep red wrapping paper with a black bow. Whose present was this? I too looked over to my parents, still with a giant grin on my face, hoping they had gotten us some sort of secret gift. But they both looked confused and somewhat horrified. My father hurried over and grabbed the box and ripped it open. His hands were shaking so bad it was visible to the whole room. Once he had gotten the box open, he stared into it, analyzing its contents. My mom rushed over in a panic and looked inside and immediately started crying. She reached her hand inside of the box, and my dad pulled away, and in that moment, the contents fell out of the box and all over the floor. It had to be at least 50 photos of my family taken in the last 6 months. How did this even get here? I remember thinking. What made it even more disturbing is that there were photos of us taken from inside the house while we were sleeping, and even of my parents being intimate. I think that was the final straw for my father. He yelled for us to gather what we needed for a few days, and that we were going to a hotel. That turned out to be the worst Christmas ever. We stayed in 3 hotels over the course of the next month. He had a moving company gather our things, sold our family home, and moved us halfway across the country. My dad stopped being a lawyer and started doing consulting work. He never really was the same again after that. Whoever was messing around with our family had gotten to him. His calm, smooth demeanor had been exchanged for a shaky, paranoid one. I don't know whatever came of the person or the people who stalked my family. It was never mentioned again, and when I got a little older and felt comfortable bringing it up, they would tell me to leave it in the past. I am now in my 30s with a family of my own, and in case anyone was wondering, I never send out Christmas cards.